Story number 1. This story took place about 15 years ago, when I was around 20. My friend's family owned a cabin deep in the Canadian wilderness. The cabin had been in their family for generations. It sat at the end of a long dirt road, completely surrounded by thick forest. There were no streetlights nearby. No electricity. No running water. No insulation of any kind. And no bathroom. Instead, there was an outhouse about 20 meters away, surrounded by tall pine trees. To get to it, you had to walk through a narrow path. Even at night, you'd have to make the trip with just a flashlight in hand. We used to visit the cabin on weekends and holidays. It was a place to relax, disconnect, and enjoy the quiet. But over the years, strange and unsettling things happened there. Things we couldn't explain. Then, one weekend, something happened that was so terrifying, it left us completely shaken. That weekend, after a string of odd and creepy experiences, we decided to invite our girlfriends. We wanted them to come with us, so they could experience it, too. We arrived at the cabin around 8 p.m. It was a Friday night. We unpacked the car and got ready for a storm that was on its way. We lit a fire in the cooking area and started making dinner. Everything seemed normal, so after we ate, we decided to call it a night and get some sleep. My girlfriend and I chose the room near the stairs that led up to the second floor. It was small but cozy, just enough space for a bed and a few shelves. My friend and his girlfriend picked the room near the main entrance. It had a better view of the forest. Before heading to bed, we carefully checked all the windows and doors to make sure everything was secure. The cabin could feel a bit creepy at night, so we always made sure nothing was left open. The main entrance leads into a screened patio, which gives a little extra protection. The screen door has a latch, but it can only be locked from the inside. Once you're in, there's no way to lock it from outside. We latched the patio door and locked the main door. We always kept the key in the lock, from the inside. Then, around 3 a.m., I woke up. I heard the sound of the front door opening. And then the screen door slamming shut. The screen door has a spring, so it always bangs when it closes. It was unmistakable. I checked my watch to be sure of the time. At first, I figured my friend had gone out to use the outhouse. But that's when I realized something strange. There was a huge storm outside. The rain was coming down hard, and the wind was howling. It didn't seem like a good time to step out, let alone walk to the outhouse. I waited for about 30 minutes. But I never heard him come back inside. That's when I got up, grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the screened patio. The wind was roaring. And the rain. It was pouring down hard, making it difficult to see much beyond the patio. I walked to the far end and aimed my flashlight toward the outhouse, hoping to spot my friend. I called his name a few times. But there was no response, just the sound of the storm. That's when I noticed something odd. The front door was unlocked. And the screen door was unlatched. Even though we had secured both before going to bed. It hit me, someone had definitely been outside. My heart started racing, but I knew I had to check. I grabbed my baseball bat, which I always kept nearby for safety, and stepped out into the storm toward the outhouse. I made sure not to accidentally lock my friend out. When I opened the outhouse door and shone my flashlight inside, it was empty. There was no sign of him, or anyone else. I went back inside the cabin, latched the screen door, and locked everything up again. Then I did a quick check of the house. Everything was quiet. No one was awake. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, maybe I had locked my friend out somehow. So I went to his room to check. But when I peeked in, he and his girlfriend were both sound asleep in bed. I was confused, but I went back to my room and tried to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and saw my friend and his girlfriend outside. We decided to make breakfast. I was standing on the patio when they came back. My friend looked at me with a strange expression. Then he asked, "What was all that about last night? You came into my room, sat on the corner of the bed, woke us up, and started talking. You kept going on about my Uncle Bob. I told you we were sleeping, but you wouldn't stop. You said, Bob wouldn't be a burden anymore. How do you even know Bob? I never told you about him." I was shocked. His girlfriend confirmed the same thing. She said I'd been in their room for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then, without a word, I just got up and left. At this point, we were all seriously freaked out. I explained to him that I only peeked into his room for a moment to make sure he wasn't outside. Because I had heard the door open. That night, we drove back home. Our girlfriends were completely convinced now that we weren't making up the story. Or the other strange things that had happened at that weird cabin. Around 10 p.m. that night, my friend called me. He sounded really shaken. He told me his grandfather had just called. His Uncle Bob had passed away the night before. Around 4 a.m. It was so strange. Because we had been talking about him just hours before. As a side note, my friend's family has owned that cabin for generations. It's always been in their family. His dad once told me that the cabin sits in a place known for strange, paranormal activity. Over the years, they've had all kinds of weird experiences there. From things moving on their own to strange noises at night. I had always thought the stories were just family legends. But after what happened, I wasn't so sure anymore. Story number 2. About a year ago, I got an Alaskan Malamute puppy. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I had always wanted a dog. And now, I finally had a buddy to share adventures with. I imagined us hiking through trails, camping, traveling together. But when fall arrived in Iowa, the cold weather made camping outside a lot less appealing. So I started looking for cabin rentals. After hours of searching, I found a cabin in Wisconsin on Airbnb. And it felt perfect. It was deep in the woods. Exactly the kind of place I was looking for. The cabin had everything I could ask for. A nice hot tub to relax in. Fast internet. A pool table for fun. And a kitchen that looked perfect for making meals after a long day of exploring. The cabin was beautiful. And surprisingly, it didn't cost much to rent. The first time I stayed there, I had a wonderful time. It was just me and my dog. I took it easy. Went hiking. Cooked a nice dinner. Slept well. I only stayed for one night. It was just a quick getaway on my day off from work. When I got home, I told my friend Martha about the cabin. She got really excited, and wanted to go there with me. So, we planned a visit for the night before Halloween. It was just the three of us, Martha, my dog, and me, heading to the cabin. That night was full of fun. We cooked a delicious dinner, relaxed in the hot tub. And then decided to watch scary movies, since Halloween was so close. I had a little too much to drink, and started feeling a bit lightheaded. While I was standing in the kitchen, I thought I saw Martha dash down the basement stairs. The stairs were just a few feet away from me. And for a moment, I froze. It was so clear. So vivid. I could have sworn it was her. But when I turned and glanced toward the living room, there Martha was. Sitting calmly on the couch. I focused on the movie, but my heart raced as I tried to make sense of what I'd just seen. A chill ran through me, and I couldn't shake how freaked out I felt. Since I'd been drinking, I told myself it was probably nothing and tried to brush it off. We stayed up late, laughing and watching movies, and eventually passed out. The night felt normal after that. Nothing else seemed out of place. But the following morning, everything changed. What happened then made me a true believer in the paranormal. Before that, I'd always been on the fence about ghosts. Sure, I'd had a few strange experiences that gave me pause. But I always found some way to explain them. Maybe my imagination, or just coincidence. Deep down, I always had doubts, convincing myself there was a logical answer. But after that morning, my perspective was never the same. We were feeling tired and a bit hungover. We had a small breakfast and then decided to sit in the hot tub before going outside. I put my dog in his crate and locked it. It was Halloween, and snow was falling heavily, covering everything in a peaceful, quiet blanket. We stayed in the hot tub for about 15 minutes, enjoying the snow and the warm water. Then I thought I heard a loud bang coming from inside the cabin. My dog's barking echoed through the cold air. We jumped out of the hot tub, grabbed our towels, and rushed back inside. As soon as we stepped into the kitchen, we froze. The room looked completely wrecked. Every cabinet door was wide open. The fridge and freezer doors were hanging open too. Items were scattered all over the place. Pots, pans, and food were thrown around. The bar chairs were all flipped over onto their backs. Drawers were open, and pans had been tossed off the shelves. Martha's phone, which had been charging on the counter, was now unplugged and lying on the floor. I couldn't think of any explanation other than something paranormal. My dog looked scared, but there was no way he could have done this. He was still a puppy, not big enough to cause so much damage. And he was locked in his crate the whole time. Before we went outside, the kitchen was a little messy from the night before. But nothing too crazy. Just some dishes in the sink and a few things out of place. It wasn't anything to worry about. But when we came back inside, it was a completely different story. The kitchen was destroyed. Everything was tossed around as if there had been a huge fight. Or something had gone wild in there. I knew Martha couldn't have done it. Because we went outside together, and there was no time for her to mess up the kitchen. There was also no way anyone could have broken into the cabin to do it. We were in the middle of nowhere, with no other houses nearby. Plus, it was snowing heavily. If someone had walked up to the cabin, we would have seen footprints in the fresh snow. But there was no sign of anyone else being there. The hot tub was right next to the long driveway that led to the cabin. We would have definitely seen if someone had driven up. There's just no other explanation for what happened. Now, both Martha and I believe in this kind of thing. I'm sure my dog saw something strange too. After everything that happened, we left the cabin quickly. But believe it or not, I stayed at the cabin several times after that. And nothing strange ever happened again. I couldn't help but wonder if maybe Halloween had stirred up something. And the spirits just wanted to be noticed. Story number 3. When I was around 13, my best friend Claire and I went to summer camp for a week. We had been going every summer for 3 years. And it had become a tradition for us. But this was our last year, so we wanted to make the most of it. On the final night, the camp organized a big party for everyone. You could watch a show in the outdoor theater. Play games like volleyball or basketball on the courts. Build sand castles, or play other games in the sand. The main attraction was a huge inflatable water slide. Claire, our mutual friend Aubrey, and I were all playing on it. After we went down the slide, I got really excited and wanted to play tag or hide and seek. I ran toward the middle of the camp, where I had to go under one of the buildings. From there, I could choose to go straight toward the arts and crafts area. Turn left toward our cabin. Or turn right toward the dining hall. I ran to the right and hid under the stairs near the dining hall. It was dark and quiet there, and I thought it was the perfect hiding spot. So I crouched down and waited, listening for footsteps or voices. After about 15 minutes, I started to think they had given up. But I felt a little confused since they weren't far behind me. And should have seen me turn right. I got up and went to look for them. When I finally found Claire and Aubrey, they ran up to Me with worried looks on their faces. "Where did you go after the cabins?" they asked. I felt really confused, so I told them, I ran to the dining hall, not the cabins. They started laughing nervously and said, "Whatever joke you're playing isn't funny." I promised them I was telling the truth. That's when Claire explained what they saw. She said they had chased after me and reached the middle of the camp. There, they saw me running to the left, toward our cabin. It's a 2-story building, and our cabin is on the upper floor. Claire said she saw me running up the stairs, and both she and Aubrey rushed after me, trying to catch up. But Claire noticed something odd. She couldn't hear the sound of my flip-flops hitting the steps, even though I was running ahead of them. It didn't make sense, and it gave her a strange feeling. When they reached the top of the stairs, I wasn't there. Then, a younger girl from our cabin was sitting in the hallway, drawing on a piece of paper. She looked up at them and asked, "Are you looking for Sammy?" They said yes, and the younger girl told them I had just gone into the cabin room. There were 2 rooms on the 2nd floor, and ours was the one closest to the stairs. Claire and Aubrey walked in and saw the restroom door closing as they entered. Claire called out my name, saying they had found me and asking me to come out already. But they didn't hear anything from me. Claire and Aubrey looked around the cabin, checking every corner, but I wasn't anywhere. They even went into the restroom, but I was still missing. At that point, they went outside, feeling confused and worried. They figured I must have somehow run past them without them noticing. I felt a chill run through me and asked Claire if she was lying. I made her swear she wasn't. She was my best friend for 4 years, and I knew she wasn't good at lying. She could never hide the truth. It made the last night of camp really scary, and I didn't know what to think after that. Claire and I drifted apart, and we haven't talked in about 3 years. But now, I want to ask her about it again. I know I went right toward the dining hall, but Claire and Aubrey saw me turn left toward the cabins. They couldn't have mixed me up with someone else because A. Claire and I were both wearing the same blue one-piece bathing suit, and B. The younger camper in our hallway also saw me run into the cabin. I'm in my first year of graduate school, and a classmate has been giving me compliments for the past 3 weeks. The first time, he asked for my name. But then he kept asking again and again, saying things like, "Your name is Scarlet, right?" Even though my name isn't Scarlet. In front of the whole class, he called me Scarlet and said, "Oops, I keep calling her Scarlet for some reason." He acts like he doesn't know my name and keeps calling me by other names, which feels really disrespectful. It seems like he's pretending because he remembers other people's names quickly. He also tries to sit next to me, which is hard to avoid since we have all our classes together. In the 2nd week of class, he asked my name again and then asked if his hair looked good while playing with it in front of me. I said yes and went back to my work right away. The most recent thing happened during my last class. I was wearing a dress that showed a bit of my neckline, and he kept staring. When class ended, he rushed over to my side of the room, leaving his backpack behind. The room is small because there's a big table in the middle, so he pushed past other students to get to me. I was clearly trying to pack my bag and leave quickly, but he stopped me in front of everyone, blocking the way. He asked my name again and said my dress looked nice. I thanked him and left the room quickly, so he would know the conversation was over. As soon as I got out, I called my friend and told her what happened. I felt uneasy and worried he might follow me home since I walked to school. Over the next few days, his behavior continued as usual. He would find ways to sit near me in every class, even if it meant awkwardly shifting seats after class had started. He kept asking unnecessary questions about my notes or assignments, often just as an excuse to talk to me. Then one day, after he stood waiting outside the classroom when I arrived, I decided I couldn't handle it anymore. I went to my class teacher and explained everything, how he wouldn't leave me alone, the constant comments, and how uncomfortable his behavior made me feel. I was relieved after speaking to my teacher, who assured me they would handle the situation discreetly. Within a few days, his behavior changed. He stopped approaching me, and I finally felt like I could breathe again in class. While it wasn't easy to speak up, I realized it was the right thing to do.